Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the scheduled and the tribal areas, right? This is the topic on which we have been discussing right now. All right. Basically within this topic of the schedule and the tribal areas, within this topic of the schedule and the tribal areas, right? These are the topics that we have scheduled for the discussion, like the introduction part, like the scheduled areas in India and overview of it, like the criteria for the identification of scheduled areas, like the constitutional provisions and the governance, like the concerns related to the scheduled areas, like the administration of the scheduled areas, like the scheduled tribes, general concerns of the tribal community, addressing the challenges, significance of the indigenous communities, problems that are being faced by the tribal groups, conclusion, and the administration of the tribal areas. Okay, so these are the topics that we had scheduled for the discussion. If we talk about the topics that we have covered so far, so basically we have done with the introduction part. We have done with the scheduled areas in India and overview of it. We have done with the criteria for the identification of scheduled areas. We have done with the constitutional provisions and the governance. We have done with the concerns that are being related with the scheduled areas. We have done with the administration of the scheduled areas. Even we have done with the scheduled tribes. Okay. So these are the topics that we have completed so far. The topics we are left with, these are the general concerns of the tribal community, addressing the challenges, significance of the indigenous communities, problems faced by the tribal groups, okay, conclusion, and the administration of the tribal areas. Okay, so this is the picture that we have created so far altogether. All right. Basically, in this lecture, we will start from where we had left. I hope that you have revised the previous lecture in the well enough manner before you come for this lecture. As many times I have told you, that is for your own benefit. All right. So let's start with the general concerns that related with the tribal community. Prior to this, let us see what we have learned in the previous lecture. In the previous lecture, basically we have discussed about the challenges and the opportunities that are available with the scheduled and tribal areas. Okay, like we had discussed, the growing population presents both the challenges as well as the opportunities for India. Okay, if we talk about the challenges, if we talk about them, these included the access to the basic amenities. All right, the healthcare, okay, and the education. Basic amenities, healthcare, and the education, and also presents the challenge to the unique cultural heritage. Like we had discussed about the population pressure in the previous lecture. So you could watch that lecture to understand like what we had discussed. Even if we talk about the opportunities that the tribals have, then basically we had discussed that this population also a good thing for them. Like basically it harnessing the potential for the tribal communities in the areas such as the sustainable development, conservation of the biodiversity, and the cultural tourism. Okay, so this is all what we had discussed in the previous lecture. Okay, now if you have watched the previous lecture, then you must have gone through the facts that we had discussed in the series. If you haven't, then please revise it. So now the topic is the schedule and the tribal areas, the series. We are going to start with the new topic, that is the concerns that are related with the tribal community. Like so far, So far, whatsoever we have discussed, that was revolving around the upliftment of the tribals, okay, revolving around the backwardness of the tribal, revolving about the socio-economic neglection of the tribals and all. So basically, whatever we have discussed so far, that was revolving around this thing. What it presented to us, basically, it presented to us the tribal population, that was the aboriginals or the Adivasis that were living in this country, okay, since the starting. Basically, they have been neglected. Basically, they have been put backward due to the various reasons. And because of this, now we require to implement the special attention, special protection, and special kind of things in order to uplift them. That is what we have discussed. Okay. So far, if you just watch it out, what you have got. So far, whatsoever we have discussed, whatsoever we have gone through, these are written with the concerns. But now, what we are going to discuss, we are going to discuss finally the concerns that are the reasons why the schedule and the tribe peoples are backward and why they require the special attention. Okay. So this is going to be the most interesting topic that we can see. All right. But here again, I will ask you a simple question. And these two are also, you can say, for the general knowledge of purpose. Okay. So as we were discussing about the aboriginals, I had told you one thing there. The aboriginals, basically the population who were originally residing in the country of Australia. Then we had discussed like how the Britishers went to the Australia, whatsoever they did. Because of this, the general population, the original population of Australia went under the major changes and now is the threat. That is what we discussed. Okay. I had connected with the USA, right? Like in the USA, there were the you can see the aboriginals or the Adivasis, or you can say the Native Americans. These were the Aztecas, the Incas, the Mayans and all. Okay. Those were also affected because of the encroaching policies of the Europeans during the medieval history. Okay. Now, if we talk about the America, all right, even when we are discussing about the constitution sources and all, I had told you one thing, that basically the Indian constitution is majorly affected by the two constitution of the world. These constitution, first is the constitution of USA, second is the constitution of Britain. All right. So here we have talked much, you can say about, we have talked much about the Britain. Now, if we talk about the America, all right. So the first question that I'm going to ask you, it is purely based on your general knowledge. Okay, this is not connected with the scheduled and tribal areas that we are discussing and all, but basically this is, you can say, connected with your general knowledge. All right. The question is very simple. What is the question? The question is, who discovered the America? Who discovered the US? Okay. The question is, who discovered the US? To answer this question, you will have 30 seconds. Think and answer. Time starts now. Just think about it. 10 seconds have been passed. Last 20 are remaining. This question is generally, you can say, pure based on your general knowledge. This is not relevant to this topic, but you must know about it. 20 seconds have been passed. Last 10 seconds are remaining. All right, the time is going to be up. And the time's up. Correct answer is Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus was the Portuguese. He was the one who discovered the USA. But if we track down this, then actually he was not the one who discovered the USA. Even he was not able to discover it. Basically, he reached the island group that is comes before the mainland of the America. Before the mainland of the America that comes, and that island group having the place that is known as the New Guinea right now. Okay. He was the one, the Christopher Columbus was the one who reached that place. He didn't reach the USA. All right. He reached that place actually. Got it? Okay. But there is a one more amusing fact that I would like to tell you is that he was not the one who gave the name America. Okay. However, the Christopher Columbus was the one who discovered the mainland of the America, but he was not the one who gave the name of America. Okay. So the next question that I'm going to ask you is that who was the person who gave the name America to that continent? Who was the person who gave name America to that continent? To answer this question, again, I will give you the 30 seconds to think and answer. Time starts now. Just think about it. 10 seconds have been passed off. Last 20s are remaining. Okay, last 10 seconds are there. Time's up. Correct answer is basically the person who gave the name America to that place was an Italian. His name was Amerigo Vespucci. Name was Amerigo Vespucci. He was the one who gave the name America to that place. All right. So please remember this thing. Now come back to the topic. So if we talk about the dwindling population, dwindling means decreasing. Dwindling means decreasing. Like you will say in the previous slide, just in the previous slide, we have seen that basically the population of the tribals are growing significantly and all. Then why we are talking about the dwindling population? Why we're talking about it? Then basically there was a one thing that I had told you is that the population estimation that we generally makes about the tribal population, that is purely based upon the census. Okay, the census, or Hindi you can call it Jangarna, that we do after every decade, after every 10 years you can say. All right, but there are also various, you can say, the non-governmental organizations, various NGOs are there also. Okay, that's do the same thing. Okay, so basically there are three reasons why the population estimation maybe differs. First, the source of data. The source of data is the primary or secondary. Okay, the primary is when we collect it for the first time. The secondary is when we collect it from the second time, or we are basically copy pasting it from somewhere. Okay, second reason was the method for the data collection. Okay, like I have told you, there are various methods for the data collection. On the basis of the method, even the population could be differs. Third reason is which organization is collecting. When we talk about the government, the method of government to collect the data regarding the population of the tribals is different when we compare it with the method that has been adopted by the NGOs and by the private firms. All right. Here I have mentioned the word NGO. What is the full form of NGO? We have discussed this full form many times. If you had paid attention, you will be aware about it. To answer this question, you will have 30 seconds to think and answer. Time starts now. Okay. Just think about it. 10 seconds have been passed off. Last 20s are remaining. Last 10 seconds are there. The time is going to be up. Okay. The time's up. So the correct answer is NGO stands for the non-governmental organization. Non-governmental organizations. All right. So that was it. So because of these three reasons, the population estimation would be different. So in one estimation, you will find the population is growing. Maybe in the second estimation, you will find the population is dwindling or decreasing. All right. Here we are going to talk about from the point of view of decreasing the population, dwindling of the population. All right. We are not going to talk about the increasing. Okay. So if we talk about the health issues, if we talk about the health issues, all right. The first is the high infant mortality rates. Like basically in the previous lecture, we had already talked about the mortality rates. Mortality rate stands for which? Like the number of people who died because of the defined cause. I am repeating, the number of people died because of the defined cause, that is stands for the mortality rates. Infant mortality rates, basically this is the number of child that have been died because of the defined cause, and these were under the age of 1. Again, I'm repeating, infantility mortality rates basically denotes the number of, you can say, the childs that have been died because of the defined cause within the 1 year of birth. It means they are not even older than 1 year. Okay, these were the under the 1 year of birth. Okay, and that is basically calculated on the basis of 100 lives. All right. So if we talk about the high infant mortality rates that are being found in the tribal areas or with the tribals, so we can say the indigenous communities, indigenous or aboriginal communities that were already residing in the India, these are facing the high infant mortality rates. Okay, it means that if we compare the infant mortality rates of the normal mainstream population with the infant mortality rates of the tribal population, then always the tribal population infantility rate will be higher in comparison with the other mainstream. Okay, and that could be due to the lack of access to the healthcare facilities. Like as I have told you, basically everything is in limited, everything having some limitations and all. Nothing is, you can say, unlimitedly available. Healthcare facilities also. The healthcare facilities, the hospitals and all these are limited in number. Okay, and even they are not available adequately at every place. So you can say the tribal areas that are having the semi-urban or the urban touch, these are having the better healthcare facilities when we compare it with the tribal areas that are having the rural and the remote approach. Okay, those even not having the proper healthcare facilities, the question of limitation and all is not even applicable to them. Why? Because they do not have this kind of thing. First is clear. Second is the poor maternal health. Poor maternal health. So basically, when the tribal population, or you can say the tribal population's woman get pregnant, okay, so generally when any woman is pregnant, all right, they requires a various kind of things. They requires the various kind of things, various kinds of attention, and various other things as well. Okay, so basically we talk about the maternal health of them. So when we compare it with the mainstream media that we are living in, the normal or the mainstream, the things are different. We have the adequate means of maternal health, but the remote area, the rural areas where the tribal women are residing, basically those areas are not so much advanced. And even we had discussed it, like the tribal areas are often backward when we compare it with the other areas. Okay, so that's why the maternal health of the women, of the tribal women, are not so good. So because of this even impacted the pregnant woman. Even some women died before even giving the birth to the new ones. Secondly is the inadequate nutrition. Okay, if we talk about it in particular, so basically what we will see, like you can say, the nutrition is required for the woman. That is quite obvious. Not for the, or not during the woman when she is carrying the child, even after giving the birth to the child. Okay, when the woman gives birth to the child, basically she requires the nutrition. Okay, and in the remote and the tribal areas, basically the provision for providing the nutrition is absent. Even if you can say, if we talk about the remote and the rural areas of the mainstream, where the mainstream people are living, so they are having the concept of Anganwadi, Jacha Bacha, these kind of schemes were basically running there. All right, so even you can say, even not so much good health conditions in the rural areas are there, but even they have something. But when we talk about the tribal population, when we talk about it, So they do not have any kind of such things. Okay, they do not having the Anganwadi Kendra, Jajacha Bachcha Kendra, and other kind of things. So basically, they are facing this inadequation of nutrition for a long time. All right, this is the thing. Thereafter, the traditional birth practices also the main cause. Like if we talk about the mainstream and all. So generally, when any woman gets pregnant in the mainstream, then we generally take her to the hospitals. We generally take her to the hospitals or the, you can say, other kind of medical facilities that we have. Okay, instead of we trying to let her give birth at home. Okay, however, you can say in some part of India, we still practices the traditional birth practices. It means that instead of getting the woman to the hospital, we let her to give the birth at the home. Okay, but when we talk about the tribal areas, so the traditional birth practices are the main reasons behind the high infant mortality rates and even the maternal death rates. Okay, like the medical support is not available. So if anything goes wrong, the woman who is giving the birth to the child is not, you can say, capable to save her child. This is the main issue also. Okay, this is the main issue also. After this, the next is the diseases and the epidemics. Diseases and the epidemics. Indigenous populations particularly vulnerable to the diseases and the epidemics. Okay, and here I would connect a finest example that I have in my mind. All right, so as we were talking about the USA, right? We were talking about the USA. There was a one major, you can say, interesting incident that took place over there. All right, and what was that? Basically, what's happened there? When the Britishers and the Europeans were trying to encroaching the land of USA from the Native Americans. So basically, what happened there? There were the indigenous people that were living there, and the one of the major groups were the group of Aztecas. From the group of Aztecas, the Aztecas was the aboriginal tribe, okay, or the indigenous tribe that was originally inhabiting the land of the USA. Then what happened when the Britishers went there and when the Europeans went there? So basically, the Europeans and the Britishers were fighting with the Aztecas because Aztecas were restricted the outer powers from letting their lands, from encroaching their lands. All right. And the Aztecas, because for a long duration, the American continent was unknown to everyone. Okay, because no one has crossed the Atlantic. If you see the world map, you will find it out that basically this is the Europe, Asia, Africa, and all, and this is the USA. Okay, these both things are departed from each other. All right, in between of this, there is an Atlantic Ocean. All right. So basically, even till the 14th, 15th centuries, no one has even crossed the Atlantic Ocean. So no one knows about it. So basically, the natives of America who were living on that land, they were basically totally cut off. They were totally cut off from the outer world. When the Britishers or the Europeans raised the various voyages to go to the places to find out the new places, then only some of them, like the Christopher Columbus, were able to cross the Atlantic Ocean and found the new continent that we call America. All right. So the Aztecan peoples, having no contact with the outsiders, they even has no immunity to fight with the diseases and the epidemics that are available in the other world. Like you can say, the Europeans, the Britishers and all, these were facing the diseases and epidemics for a long time. So basically, their bodies had adopted a defense system against these kind of things. But the Native Americans who were living there, because they were totally cut off from the outer world for a long duration, so they had nothing. They had no immunity to fight with this thing. So when they came into the contact with the Britishers and all, so basically their body got infected because of the chikungunya. That is what we call chechak. Okay, Chechak, you can say epidemic or chikungunya epidemic, basically affected or infected the local Aztecal people. Okay, and because, as I have told you, their body was not so much adopted with this kind of diseases, then what is impacted? Basically, the Aztecas started dying. Okay, because of this chikungunya or because of this Chechak problem. They were dying constantly. All right, and without even knowing their enemy. All right, so that is the example you can connect it here. Similar kind of things is with the tribal peoples that are living in the country, in country we are living in, because these are also cut off from the outer world for a long duration. They have no contact with them. So basically, whatsoever problems, whatsoever diseases that we are facing right now, these diseases, these epidemics are basically, you can say, against them, our bodies had developed a various kind of defense system because we have been facing this for a long duration. But the indigenous peoples not facing them, so that's why they are vulnerable to these diseases and epidemics. Why? Because their body is not so much equipped with a defense system that is required to fight against these diseases and epidemics. And lack of immunization, it means that first their body immunity is not so much developed to fight these diseases and epidemics. Even after this, the healthcare infrastructure is not there. So this exacerbates the situation. For instance, you can say someone having the tuberculosis and the malaria. So this will have the high prevalence rates in the tribal area. Why? Because everybody will be suffering from this immediately. Why? Because they do not having any defense system against diseases and epidemics. Even the healthcare infrastructure is not so much capable to cure them effectively. And obviously, low life expectancy would be there. Why? Because overall life expectancy of tribal population is lower compared to general population, owing to the poor healthcare, malnutrition, and higher incidence of the disease. Okay, this is the thing. So students, basically in this lecture, we have finished till here. In the next lecture, we will continue from here. Till then, revise the facts and figures we have discussed in this lecture. Be ready for the next lecture. With this note, let's end this lecture and thank you.